I think like one thing Nick and I were talking about, and, I've been at startups where it was totally the right play to do like SEO driven content and, AI driven content and everything else. But what I think we're starting to realize more and more is like, okay, you drove a lot of top of funnel traffic. How's that working out for you? Are those people actually valuable? Are they actually, looking to become one of your customers? Or were they, for example, looking for how they could integrate this data solution, to a different plugin? And now they have their answer and they're not your target market. And yay, you drove traffic, but who really cares?
Hey everyone, welcome to the Optimize Your Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Binek, and in this episode, I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down and talking to the head of marketing at Air Traffic Control. They're a groundbreaking content platform that drives pipeline for B2B organizations. I'm really excited for this episode with Julia Winn. Hopefully you enjoy it, and let me know what you think. Julia, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on, Ian.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm so excited to be talking to you today. I think the insights that you're going to be sharing are going to be really valuable. I think especially because I was on your LinkedIn, I'm kind of looking into you a little bit, and you talk a lot about marketing and sales alignment, as well as some cutting edge strategy stuff too, and keeping up with those kinds of trends. So I'm really excited to just get right into this. And the first thing that I want to ask you is just, can you tell me a little bit more about air traffic control and what you're up to right now?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So I'm the head of marketing at Air Traffic Control. We are a teeny tiny little startup, and we've really prioritized being in the HubSpot ecosystem. So Air Traffic Control sits in between HubSpot and your CMS, which is sometimes HubSpot, sometimes something else like Webflow, et cetera. And we basically generate interest graphs based on kind of content preferences and viewing history from your contacts. And that allows you to create really ABM style content experiences for anyone in your database. So super easy way to do ABM. We don't do, kind of signals. We're not Sixth Sense. We're really like brass tacks, help you get in touch with the people in your database, prospects and customers, and serve them up the content that's most relevant to them.
So the kind of interest graphs that you're generating, I mean, is there a way you can kind of describe that? I mean, you say you're not signals, so what does that look like, at least from like an auditory standpoint? Obviously, we don't have visuals here.
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to think about it is like if Ian and Julia are both in the database and Julia clicks on a blog piece about rhinoceroses, then it's very likely that the next piece I might want to read might have something to do with rhinoceroses. Maybe you click on a blog piece that's about planes. And of course, this is a very random non B2B example here, right? But it's very likely that you might be interested in something to do with aviation. So all of these little kind of topics would be populated in air traffic control and then sent on the back end as custom properties in HubSpot. And that allows us to automate what the next best content solution or the next best content piece would be for you to consume in an email and an ABM style landing page. The applications are really limitless.
Yeah, I imagine you can probably create some sort of dashboard inside of HubSpot that probably pulls those custom objects in as well. And if there's a lot of similarities, then that's like, oh, great. Like we should definitely create this content in between the contacts too, is what it sounds like.
Yes. Well, I think so. On the back end of ATC, basically what we have is a content utilization score and a topic radar. So it'll show you like maybe you have 300 pieces of content and you have all these people that are really interested in rhinoceroses, but you don't have any pieces on them. Like you better go and start creating a piece on that. So from that sense, it kind of helps with content creation and making sure that you're aligning your content production to your target audience. And it's very likely that if someone in your database is really interested in rhinoceroses, that your target market is probably also interested in rhinoceroses. So you better go right about it because it's actually going to help your inbound as well as help you nurture people that are in your database.
So I guess it's such a niche product, but also HubSpot is such a very popular CRM. Almost, I don't know what percentage of the market, but it's a huge percentage of the market that's using it, right? So I would love to kind of hear, what are your strategies or tactics that you're using to kind of get in front of more people to use ATC?
Yeah. So I think the first thing we had to do was ruthlessly prioritize on a product and marketing perspective which CRM to kind of go with. So, early on, perhaps someday we'll have a Marketo integration. Perhaps someday we'll have Pardot Salesforce Marketing Cloud integration. But right now, the HubSpot ecosystem is such a rich environment, and our product plays so well with HubSpot that the very first thing we had to do was validate, our product by getting listed on a HubSpot app marketplace. And anyone that's ever done that knows it is not a small task. There's a lot of kind of product backend. There's a lot of documentation. There's app installs and just proving that we work really nicely with HubSpot, right? So we did that first, which obviously gets us, a huge boost of just being on the marketplace, both internally from people searching for ABM style content experiences and also validating to any outbound motion like, look, we're here, we're real, like you can trust us. So that was a huge thing. And then in terms of other activities that we're really prioritizing, it's honestly been a really different playbook than most of the other startups that I've been at, of which there are many. So, we haven't, for example, prioritized like an SEO driven content motion. Like when we write content, we really are just trying to be helpful and useful to our audience. Like I am not stuffing anything with keywords. I'm not worried about site traffic because that's not something that my audience particularly, that's not how I think they're going to find us. So being really real and actually being able to like not have a filter on when we write content is super fun for one thing. But in addition to that, we just started noticing that the people that are using us, the customers that are using us, they love us, right? So word of mouth is everything. And also, how can we kind of scale that up? So what we did was create a referral program wherein we are working with several agency partners. We currently have 14 to kind of say like, look, here's the people within your purview who are a great fit for us. We're not for everybody. We're not for people that don't prioritize content production, for example, or people that aren't on HubSpot. But these 10 people that you're working with are. So want to introduce us? Let's go ahead and actually have an official referral program. So that's been something else that we are really, really focused on. And we will be at Inbound at HubSpot this year. So we're not going to be there, with a booth, but we'll be there, sharing word of mouth, sharing, product news and everything else. So we're really excited about that as well.
Is it fair to say that you're using ATC to write this content for your prospects as well?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We totally eat our own dog food, as my founder Nick would like to say. So, just the other day I was looking at the back end there and I was like, we really don't have a lot of pieces on like social media and how, we don't have a lot of pieces on how AI is changing SEO. Like, oh, I'm gonna go write that right now. And it's actually gratifying as like a startup marketer to be able to just write a piece of content and be like, check the box. I did something today because everything feels so ongoing and so huge that it's just like a lovely thing to be able to go and do. So we are absolutely using our own product to be able to send out content that's relevant to our audience.
I love that you mentioned too that you're not just writing content for the SERP, right? Like and for to rank higher in Google. You're just trying to write quality content. We
Yeah.
just had a guest on yesterday. He's the manager of SEO at G2. And he was talking all about how you can't really over index on like the hacky, trendy stuff, like using AI to write blogs and stuff for you and trying to just keyword stuff, right? Modern day keyword stuffing. It's great to have two guests on in a row, essentially, that are talking about the same thing.
Well, hey, I'll take being in that camp with someone from G2 every day. And I think like one thing Nick and I were talking about, and, I've been at startups where it was totally the right play to do like SEO driven content and, AI driven content and everything else. But what I think we're starting to realize more and more is like, okay, you drove a lot of top of funnel traffic. How's that working out for you? Are those people actually valuable? Are they actually, looking to become one of your customers? Or were they, for example, looking for how they could integrate this data solution, to a different plugin? And now they have their answer and they're not your target market. And yay, you drove traffic, but who really cares? Like in a lot of ways, that's just a vanity metric. So, yeah, it's been really lovely to just be like, I think this would be really valuable. Oh, look, yes, it would. And I don't have anything on it. That's what I'm going to write about today. And we are also writing with our agency partners. We're writing pieces for them, thought leadership pieces. They're writing for us. We're cross promoting in a way that I haven't been able to do at a lot of other brands just because we're prioritizing that referral and kind of word of mouth mechanism.
Yeah, and that cross promoting is sort of an SEO play in and of itself, but it's better.
Yeah,
It's more than that, right? Because you're on social media as well. So,
totally. I
and they're
mean,
probably plugging that.
and some things that work for SEO now worked 10 years ago and some super don't. Like, this
Yep.
is going to be a great backlink for me. Like, that's awesome. This is totally helping with my SEO. But am I going to answer the 18 people that are like, hey, do you want 18 backlinks? Like, no, because that worked like in
Yeah.
2005 and it doesn't work now. So just stop it.
This episode is sponsored by Optimize Your Marketing. If you're looking for B2B Google Ads strategy for tech companies, then look no further than Optimize Your Marketing. They implement a custom Notion database that is filled with strategy documents ranging from competitive analysis to ad account optimization. If you're looking to optimize your Google Ads accounts with some next level strategy, then feel free to reach out to them at optimizeyourmarketing.io. Now, let's get back to the show.
Julia, the next question is about AI. I'd
Mm.
love to hear your thoughts on AI, especially in the digital marketing industry. I mean, there's a lot of people that are scared of it, and then there's a lot of people that are like, AI sucks, like I'm not scared of it. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on it? How do you think it's going to shape the rest of this decade?
Yeah. Well, I don't think people should be scared. I do always say thank you when I see, use AI just in case Skynet becomes a reality and,
Yeah.
we're in a position I want them to know I was polite. But I don't think it can replace, human touch in terms of content production and quality. I just don't. I think sometimes you have really highly technical content. I worked at a data integration startup where we were primarily speaking to engineers, for example, and because of that, like, we could use AI pretty effectively to kind of talk about how this integration worked with this integration, et cetera. Does that work when you're marketing to marketers or people in sales or creatives? No, it doesn't. And it can't produce, the same quality and just production quality. But it can do other really cool things like generate HTML blocks for you. It can take transcriptions of blog pieces and come up with fairly decent hooks and summaries and everything else. I think it's great for outlines. When it comes to imagery, there's so many cool platforms that are quite fun to play with. I think my sons and I just did one the other day of kind of combining our dog with a buffalo, and that was really cool. It came up with a great
Nice.
image. But am I going to use it exclusively for branding? No, I won't. And I might be biased because I'm married to a graphic designer, but I don't think it's ever going to be able to replicate a brand design. Now, can a human come up with a great set of brand guidelines, and then can AI potentially go and generate some imagery that will be great for a blog or something? Sure. But are they going to be able to effectively, design an entire website and brand collateral and everything else from that? I still think it's going to need like human tweaking. So, I don't think people should be scared. I don't think marketers should be scared. I think it can be a great tool to make things faster, and to kind of check off some things that were previously quite dull for marketers, honestly, that now you can just do faster. And then you can focus on the other things that humans do really, really well.
I I do see how AI could replace teams,
Mm,
certain teams. And I guess that's just technology in general. I mean, looking at the Industrial Revolution, that replaced a lot of jobs. It created new jobs, but it replaces a lot of old jobs. And I kind of feel like AI is kind of trending that way in this decade. So I don't think people should be scared as long as they're willing to learn it. If
yeah.
they're not willing to learn it, then I think they are going to be on a back foot, and that will ultimately just make it harder to get roles in the future.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the Industrial Revolution metaphor is a very good one, right? And I think, yes, you can't be a Luddite that's just going to say, no, I don't want to do it. You can't not realize that having something generate an outline for you instead of going through and doing all that or synthesizing large, data sets or something is not something that's going to bring value to you. I think we agree on, you have to use it in the capacity that it will help, and you have to be willing to kind of stretch yourself and say, okay, well, what are the the things that I can do that it can't do? What are the things that I can do that are going to end up being more quality? And I think as long as people do that, I think that, they'll be just fine.
All right, so I have two questions left for you, Julia, today. I want to hear about your overrated strategies of 2024 or tactics even, right? I want to hear what you think people are focusing on. I mean, maybe they're wrong. Maybe they shouldn't be focusing on, or maybe it's just overrated. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are.
Yes, I am a bit biased on this, and from being in B2B marketing, but something that drives me crazy and I think annoys people more than drive value is like B2B mobile text messaging. And, obviously like cold calling has been around forever, right? Like that's like Glengarry Glen Ross. So I'm not going to say like calling on the phone, but I think what happened is, everybody goes remote. Like I don't have an office number anywhere. I work from home. When you call me on my iPhone, like you're calling me on my personal number. When you text me on my phone and I haven't even registered for your webinar, and you're reminding me every hour about it just because I did register for something a month ago, like that's just annoying and you need to stop. So again, totally biased, but I think it feels really, really intrusive, particularly for like B2B. Now, if it's my doctor's office reminding me about an appointment, like, okay, that's a completely different application. But that kind of bugs me. Other than that, I mean, in terms of like modern strategies, I mean, I think there's some things you can point to about like using AI to make sure you're posting on LinkedIn every day, for example, because you went in and said, okay, I need to be more of a thought leader. So I need to post every day because everybody's telling me I do. So, hey, let's come up with 30 days worth of this thing. And let's just keep pressing post and post and post. I post on LinkedIn too. I get it. But I really, again, with the human value thing, think that people want that more. I think, someone that does that incredibly well is like Zoe Hartsfield from Apollo. It posts, very, very frequently, but it is really value driven. And you can tell that she's not just coming up with this, kind of random arbitrary content calendar. You can tell that she's using her own history. She's very transparent. I find that like really refreshing. And apparently, so do like the other 70 billion people that are following her. I don't know what her actual follower count is, but
Yeah.
I think like when you just see the same thing being generated again and again, and it just doesn't read like a real human, like that is quite dull. And I think people should stop doing that too.
The AI generation is really bad. I agree. I don't even know if I really want to add too much on it. Similar to overrated, I want to hear about your underrated strategies and tactics in 2024.
Let's see, underrated. I think I have been just like kind of regurgitating my own beliefs throughout this entire conversation, but I do think that going through and creating content to create value for your audience using a platform like ATC is very helpful, but you can also do it without. Like just talk to your customers, talk to people. Like we get so I think the example from PayScale is really, really cool. But I'll give you an example. We're using AppQs as our kind of in product support, right? So onboarding journeys and everything else. And that provides us with a whole bunch of really, really cool analytics about where people are dropping off, where they might need more support, where they're asking questions about how do I make an email template. So that's great from a point of view of like, okay, I've got some of this data. But when you actually drill into it and you actually say, like, Daniel, why weren't you able to create this email? And he's like, well, I didn't know how to make the template. And it's like, okay, so now I need to define, some sort of an onboarding experience that literally is going to make him a module that he can drop in because he's not in marketing ops. He's a marketer that's using a platform, but like he's never really worked with HTML before. So I need to go ahead and support him on that. And I can see from a like meta perspective that happening with app queues within my platform and from some other analytics tools that we use. But until I actually understand why, by having words with this man, I can't really help him. So I think underrated most of all is just that value of human connection of, not just with your customers, but with your team, sales and marketing talking to each other instead of competing with each other is huge, right? So we just, I think there can sometimes be this kind of competition, push and pull between what's the attribution of, this lead or this piece of pipeline or whatnot. And once we can actually just stop it and like drop the ego, sit down, forget about the hubris and say, okay, we are just going to talk about what did that customer say to you and what is this prospect saying to me, then, we can actually make some cool things happen. So I think overarchingly, if any of that made any sense, it's just about listening and talking to human beings face to face or, computer screen to computer screen as much as possible. I think that is the thing that can't be replaced by AI and is just really, really valuable.
We actually do something like that in our agency where we have a listening Zapier bot. And anytime someone asks a question in any one of our channels, it throws it into an Airtable database.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll review those questions on a weekly basis and decide like, hey, like we want to make content from this question, or this question showed up like 5 times. This is definitely something we should make into an ebook.
Totally. And I can't I will shout out some credit to former CEO that I worked with, Michael Pape, who I worked with for years at Waggle. And after Series A, our company got quite large. And one of the things that we started implementing, and apologies, Waggle people, if there was someone else that was kind of responsible for this, but we would do lunch and learns for customers, and we started just doing it internally so that product could sit down and say, we're building these things and this is why. And people can ask questions. And we would do this once a month from, this is what marketing is doing. These are the things that we're sharing. Everybody has an opportunity to kind of pitch it, chime in with some feedback, questions, so that we all actually understand and are aligned on the same goals. So I think, that's probably the genesis of where I kind of got this like crazy desire for everybody talking all the time and everybody being really transparent. But it just works better like that. Life works better like that. Business works better like that. So I'm and will always be a huge
Well, so, Julia, that's all I have for you today. I absolutely loved, talking to you. I think we had some really great insights. I learned a lot, so I'm sure our listeners will learn a lot too. So before we wrap up, Julia, could you let us know how people could get in touch with you in case they wanted to talk more about ATC and anything that you talked about today in this interview?
Sure. Yeah, I am on LinkedIn. So you can find me sparingly posting human related content on LinkedIn. And then you can find air traffic control on the HubSpot app marketplace or at our website, airtrafficcontrol.io.
Well, thank you so much, Julia. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thanks for the time, Ian.
Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Optimize Your Marketing podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to give it a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Or if you just so happen to be listening to this on YouTube, give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you thought of the episode. It helps a lot with growing this thing. We publish episodes every single Tuesday morning MST. If you're interested in following for more content just like this, be sure to give it a follow. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.